I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting for July 23rd, 2024 at 5 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Alderpersons Wolf.
Here.
Schrader. Here. Madden.
Here.
We have a quorum present.
Thank you. Public meeting notice?
This meeting was noticed in accordance with the open meeting law on Friday, July 19th, 2024.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes from June 25th, 2024.
Move to approve. Second.
There's one change on there. Oh, never mind. That's in the cow. We'll go.
I was going to say. No.
Nothing on that one. Any further discussion that it's relevant besides mine? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously. 2023 audit presentation.
Oh.
Welcome.
I don't know if that's on. You may have to turn that.
Yeah, I think it's on. You able to hear me? Yep. All right. Well, thank you for having me here this evening. My name is Wendy Unger. I am a partner from Baker Tilly and responsible for the city's audit. At your place tonight, you should have a one-page handout, which is what I will use to go through the two documents that we issue as part of the audit process, one being the reporting and insights document and one being the audited financial statements. Both of those documents should be on their way. I had hoped they had been shipped and they hadn't, so they were FedEx and you should have those in hand hopefully tomorrow. But I will use this handout, go through some very high-level financial information. I have included my contact information at the end, and I'm happy to talk with any of you in more detail once you receive those documents. So the information that I've included on the handout begins with our audit process. As part of our process of performing the audit, we select an audit team. We review and test internal controls that are in place at the city over the various transaction cycles. We test year-end account balances and we review the draft financial statements that are prepared by management as part of the audit process. Very happy to say we've issued a clean, unmodified opinion, highest level of assurance you can obtain from us as your auditors. That's the same type of opinion that you've received in the past. So again, it's also referred to as an unmodified or clean opinion. That clean opinion means that the financial information contained within the audited statements is believed to be materially accurate. All disclosures that are required to be included under the accounting standards have been, and generally accepted accounting principles have been adhered to. Before I get into some very high-level financial information, just going to quickly touch on the reporting and insights document, which is a separate document that we issue as part of the audit process. That document really satisfies a couple different purposes. One is to allow us to communicate any comments or recommendations that we may have as part of the audit process. Also allows us to satisfy our requirements under our standards of some communication with those charged with governance. Just a couple items to note within that report. Again, very similar to what you've seen in the past, continue to have no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in internal controls. That's a very positive statement to make. That means that there's proper segregation of duties over the major transaction cycles of the city, looking at payroll, accounts payable, cash receipts, taxes, those type of areas, and ensuring that proper internal controls exist. I'm also very happy to say that management does prepare the audited financial statements that we review. They prepare those materially accurate, and we had no audit adjustments. So again, a very positive scenario there. Also included in that report, other comments and recommendations. We continue to just carry forward the cash collection point, just reminding you that there are other areas within the city that collect cash that are not subject to those internal controls. Also, there's 2 new governmental accounting standards that will be effective for 2024, GASB 100 and 101. Never a year that we don't have something that GASB has decided to implement, and we'll make sure we work with management to implement those. Don't think there will be any significant impact to the city in regards to those. As I also mentioned, again, a good portion of that report is just general and customary communication that we need to have with you. Nothing unusual or unexpected in that portion of the report, so nothing I need to draw your attention to. Switching gears then into some very high-level financial information. The first item I've noted here is referring to the management's discussion and analysis. This is a very short Cliff Note version of activity at the city for 2023 in comparison to 22 that is drafted by management. I encourage you all to take a look at that if you do nothing else. Again, it gives you a very quick snapshot at what happened during the year. My next point that I've included here is some information regarding the government-wide financial statements. These are not documents that you manage your organization by. They are not by funds. They are a collective summary of the activity of the city, both by the governmental funds, so your general fund, debt service, capital project, and then by your utilities. So again, 2 separate columns, but it follows full accrual. Accounting, not going to go into those in detail, but do want to mention that there was an increase in net position for the year of 2.2 million, really based on additional developer contributions and landfill host fees that were collected. And then you did see an increase in your expenses over 2022 by roughly $4 million. Keeping in mind that these expenses include depreciation and that type of activity, so not something that you would see on your day-to-day funds. Main reason for that increase over 22 was additional personnel costs and the rising increase in health insurance premiums. Going to number 3 then, this is where I begin to talk about information that you're probably more used to seeing. The general fund operations compared to budget. I've summarized in the next paragraph. Revenues came in over budget for 23 by roughly $534,000. Most of that is in the area of investment income. As you are, I'm sure, fully aware, 2023 was an excellent market year, and governments, along with everybody else, reaped the benefits of that and ultimately received more than what you had anticipated at the time of budgeting. Your expenditures came in a little bit over budget, roughly $34,000. When you look at the functional classifications, and by that I mean general government, public safety, public works, all of them are within a relatively close to budget variance, and essentially in totality came in $34,000 over. When you put together your general fund budget for 2023, you budgeted to break even. So you budgeted to add nothing to fund balance and ultimately added $276,000 to fund balance. So a very positive year-end result within your general fund, which is your day-to-day operating fund. And we'll talk in a moment about the fund balance that existed in that fund. The next bullet point, I've summarized the sewer and water activity for 2023. Sewer operations saw a decrease in net position of roughly $684,000. A couple reasons for that. The city continues to see increased MMSD costs. Those costs increased by roughly $1 million, which is very similar to what I'm seeing at my other communities. Your charges to customers were relatively flat, but overall, you also saw a nice increase in investment income over the previous year by roughly $340,000. So although there was a decrease in that position due to those rising costs, you did offset that by some increased investment income. The water utility did have an increase in net position of $667,000. Again, customer costs were relatively flat. Customer sales were relatively flat and your expenditures remained relatively consistent with the previous year. So very similar activity to the 2022 activity. The next point there, the long-term debt, there is extensive footnotes that detail this out in more information, but just to highlight a couple items here, there was no new borrowings during 2023, so no increase in your long-term obligations. Ultimately, you paid down roughly $2.7 million of your outstanding obligations, so a nice decrease there. The only other item I would bring to your attention within that long-term obligation section is when you look at that footnote, you will note that there is a net pension liability. And this is something we talk about each year where sometimes it's an asset, sometimes it's a liability, and this is the city's proportionate share of your participation in the Wisconsin retirement system. That system is typically 100% funded. When market does well, it swings to an asset. When the market doesn't do as well, it swings to a liability. Now, you may be asking, well, Wendy, you just said 2023 was an excellent year for market. Why are we in a liability position? Just always remind you, you're a year off. That is 2022 data that is included in that liability. It is all based on actuarial information provided to each municipality by the system. And again, that number fluctuates annually when it's over and underfunded. So again, not something you owe, not something you get when it's an asset, but it does look unusual in your footnote. So I just wanted to make sure I clarified that. The last item in that long-term section, just always think it's important to highlight the city's borrowing capacity, which is 5% of your equalized value, which equates to roughly $239 million. You had $32 million of outstanding general obligation debt. So the net effect of that $207 million is your capacity to borrow as of 12/31/23. And obviously that fluctuates as equalized value fluctuates and as you make debt payments. The last item that I have noted on here refers you to some pages in the footnotes regarding net position and fund balance. The only item I will highlight in this section is, again, going back to the general fund and noting that as of the end of the year, the general fund did end the year after adding that $275,000 roughly to fund balance at over $8 million. The city does have a policy that requires that fund balance to be equal to or more than 17% of your general fund subsequent year operating budget. The 8.2 that you have in that fund currently is roughly 46%. So you're in compliance with your policy and even have some additional reserves for working capital to finance additional costs until you borrow those type of items. So overall, a very positive year for the city. As I mentioned when I began, I have included my information here. Happy to talk with any of you about any of the audit process or the results in more detail. Please feel free to reach out, but I'd also be happy to answer any questions you might have currently.
Any questions? Where's the books?
What?
When are the books coming, you said?
Should be here tomorrow.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Moving on with the agenda, license approval. Recommend approval of a Class B liquor license for 3777 Kearns Crossing, West Bend, Wisconsin, 53098 DBA Bushies, located at South 67 West 14831 Janesville Road.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Recommend approval of a Class B liquor license for 377 Kearns Crossing, West Bend, Wisconsin, 53098 DBA Busch Gardens, located at South 67 West 14891 Janesville Road.
Move to approve. Second.
Discussion? Just a question for the clerk. How long can a license be dormant or not being used before we pull it back in?
I believe it's 90 days, so I will reach out to him tomorrow.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Recommend approval of an outside dance permit for TJ's Roundabout LLC, DBA TJ's Roundabout, located at South 102 West 19570 Kelsey Drive for August 10th, 2024, from 4 p.m. until 10 p.m. for their 10th anniversary.
Move to approve. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. There is no new business. Voucher approval.
Recommend approval of utility vouchers in the amount of $509,329.42.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
Recommend approval of general fund vouchers in the amount of $397,748.47. Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes.
And recommend approval of the wire transfers for payroll invoice transmittals in the amount of $440,028.56.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. We do not have a finance director's report tonight, I assume. Communications miscellaneous business. Seeing none, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned at 5:16, sorry.